Locking warheads into firing position.
Hold it, Dan. They've got to be friendly. They could have blasted us right out of the sky.
The black hole wasn't just Disney's space epic, it was desperation in the void.
That madman is headed straight for the black hole. What'll we do?
A film that turned family entertainment into existential nightmare and made the Mouse House embrace death and damnation. But behind the spinning vortex and murderous robots, nothing was certain. Disney spent more money than ever before trying to compete with Star Wars. The ending featured literal hell imagery that traumatized children.
So you make it fun, whatever it is. Even a crying scene, even a tragic scene, even a heavy scene.
And the studio's first PG-rated film contained violence that would have earned an R rating years later. These are 15 weird facts about the black hole. 1. It was Disney's desperate response to Star Wars. After watching Star Wars dominate the box office, Disney executives panicked, realizing they had completely missed the science fiction revolution that was redefining blockbuster entertainment.
Nobody knows. The next black hole is 6,000 light years away. It's called Cygnus X.
The studio had no credible sci-fi properties and desperately needed something that could compete with Lucas's empire while maintaining Disney's family-friendly reputation. The black hole went into rushed production with an enormous budget that dwarfed anything Disney had previously attempted for non-animated features. Executives demanded that the film look as spectacular as Star Wars, while incorporating Disney's traditional emphasis on character relationships and moral lessons. The desperate attempt to capture lightning in a bottle led to creative compromises that satisfied neither hardcore sci-fi fans nor traditional Disney audiences. The production became Disney's most expensive live-action film to date, representing a massive gamble on a genre the studio didn't fully understand. 2. Maximilian was designed to be Disney's Darth Vader. The iconic red robot was conceived as Disney's answer to Star Wars' villain, a silent, menacing presence that would terrify audiences while being marketable as toys and merchandise. Designer Peter Ellenshaw created Maximilian as a floating death machine whose spinning blades and imposing silhouette would create instant recognition and fear in equal measure. The robot was deliberately colored blood red to suggest violence and danger, pushing against Disney's traditional color palettes that favored primary colors and cheerful aesthetics.
Remember what they say, all work and no play?
All sunshine makes a desert, so the Arabs say. You'll alert me if you're in trouble, Captain.
Maximilian's design incorporated religious imagery, particularly fallen angel iconography, that suggested the robot was more than simple machine, but rather embodiment of corrupted technological power. The character's silence made him more threatening than any dialogue could achieve, allowing audiences to project their own fears onto this mechanical executioner. 3. The ending sequence was Disney's first depiction of hell. The psychedelic journey through the black hole concluded with imagery that explicitly referenced Christian concepts of hell, damnation, and eternal punishment, unprecedented territory for Disney. The sequence featured Maximilian and Dr. Reinhardt merged together in a hellish landscape surrounded by robed figures suggesting the damned.
Prepare reactors. Maximilian!
Creating nightmare fuel that traumatized young viewers. Disney executives initially resisted the hell imagery, worried it would alienate family audiences, but director Gary Nelson insisted the existential journey required genuine cosmic horror. The religious symbolism was deliberate and extensive, drawing from Dante's Inferno and medieval depictions of perdition to create a finale that felt more like theological warning than science fiction. The abrupt shift from space adventure to metaphysical horror confused audiences who expected traditional Disney resolution with clear moral lessons and happy endings. 4. Anthony Perkins was cast against Type Perkins, forever associated with Norman Bates and psychological horror, was deliberately cast as the rational, likable scientist Dr. Alex Durant to subvert audience expectations about his character's reliability. The casting created immediate suspicion among viewers familiar with Perkins's filmography, making them wonder if his character would betray the crew or reveal hidden madness. Director Nelson wanted to play with these associations, using Perkins's horror pedigree to create uncertainty about which characters could be trusted in the increasingly surreal environment.
Contact with people has made this man a little eccentric, but you can't ask me to believe that he's programmed his robots to feel emotion.
Perkins brought subtle menace to seemingly innocent scenes, adding layers of ambiguity that made his character's ultimate fate more shocking and tragic. 5. The miniature USS Cygnus was 10 feet long. The massive spacecraft required unprecedented scale to capture the intricate details that would make it convincing in close-up photography and wide establishing shots. Model makers spent months constructing the Cygnus with thousands of individual components, windows and surface details that would create authentic weathering and lived-in appearance. The ship's Gothic cathedral-inspired design reflected its captain's megalomania and religious obsessions, with architectural elements suggesting corrupted spirituality rather than functional engineering. The model was so large and detailed that it required special rigging and support systems to prevent structural damage during filming and transportation between stages. 6. It was Disney's first PG-rated film. The PG rating represented a dramatic departure from Disney's traditional G-rated family entertainment, signaling the studio's attempt to appeal to older audiences and compete in modern film markets. The film featured violent death scenes, including a character being sliced through with spinning blades, that pushed the boundaries of what PG ratings allowed in 1979. Disney executives struggled with how much violence they could include while maintaining brand identity, creating internal conflicts about appropriate content for Disney productions. The rating controversy demonstrated changing audience expectations and the studio's recognition that pure family entertainment was no longer commercially viable in post-Star Wars Hollywood. 7. Maximilian's murder scene was originally more graphic. The sequence where Maximilian kills Dr. Durant with spinning blades was significantly toned down from its original conception, which explicitly showed the robot's weapons penetrating the scientist's body.
Dr. Reinhardt told you to requisition the parts for us? Let's get cracking.
Test audiences reacted with horror to the graphic violence, forcing Disney to re-edit the sequence using strategic cuts and reaction shots rather than explicit depiction. The original footage was so disturbing that Disney executives worried it would earn an R rating and completely alienate the family audiences they needed for commercial success. Even the toned-down version traumatized viewers who weren't prepared for Disney to depict on-screen murder with such mechanical brutality and cold efficiency. The editing challenges revealed Disney's inexperience with violence in live-action films, struggling to find the balance between dramatic impact and acceptable content standards. 8. The robot voices were performed by veteran voice actors. Roddy McDowall and Slim Pickens provided the voices for Vincent and Bob, bringing personality and warmth to mechanical characters that could have been simple comic relief or obvious C-3PO copies. McDowall's extensive voice acting experience allowed him to create a robot character with genuine emotional range despite being artificially constrained by mechanical speech patterns. Pickens brought his distinctive drawl and everyman quality to Bob, making the damaged robot feel sympathetic and tragic rather than simply broken machinery. The voice performances elevated the robots beyond simple plot devices, creating characters whose relationships with human crew members felt genuine rather than obviously manufactured for audience sentiment. The actors recorded their dialogue separately from filming, allowing the physical puppeteers to focus entirely on movement, while voices were added later with precise timing. 9. John Barry's score was unusually dark for Disney composer Barry, known for his James Bond soundtracks, created a musical landscape that emphasized dread and cosmic horror rather than Disney's traditional optimistic adventure themes. The score incorporated avant-garde techniques and dissonant passages that reflected the film's existential themes about mortality and the limits of human understanding. Barry's music avoided typical Disney melodicism, instead creating atmospheric soundscapes that suggested infinite space and the terror of confronting forces beyond human comprehension. The composer studied astronomical recordings and theoretical physics to understand how to musically represent concepts like event horizons and gravitational collapse. The orchestration emphasized low brass and strings to create ominous atmosphere that prepared audiences for the film's increasingly dark trajectory toward its hellish conclusion. 10. The special effects team used innovative front projection. The film pioneered new front projection techniques that allowed actors to interact with miniature environments in ways that traditional blue screen couldn't achieve convincingly. The technical innovation required precise coordination between multiple projection sources, camera positions, and lighting setups that pushed 1970s effects technology to its limits. Effects supervisor Peter Ellenshaw developed custom equipment and techniques specifically for the black hole, creating processes that would influence how later science fiction films approach composite photography. The front projection work allowed seamless integration of live actors with miniature sets and space backgrounds, creating visual coherence that made the fantastical environments feel physically real. The technical complexity meant that some shots required days of setup and testing before actual filming could begin, consuming production time and budget at alarming rates. 11. Ernest Borgnine played a surprisingly complex character. Borgnine's Harry Booth was written as the skeptical, pragmatic crew member who questioned the mission's wisdom, providing voice for audience concerns about the increasingly dangerous situation. The actor brought depth to what could have been a simple coward role, making Booth's fear feel rational rather than contemptible given the genuine threats facing the crew. Borgnine's performance balanced comic moments with serious, dramatic scenes, creating a character who evolved from reluctant participant to genuinely heroic in his final actions. The character's arc from skeptic to believer paralleled audience journey from confusion to understanding about the film's metaphysical themes and cosmic scope. 12. The film's budget spiraled to $20 million. Disney's most expensive production to that point consumed resources at unprecedented rates, with special effects work and elaborate sets driving costs far beyond initial projections. The budget overruns created panic among Disney executives who worried the film would need to be one of the highest-grossing movies ever just to break even. The massive financial investment represented Disney's commitment to competing in the new science fiction marketplace regardless of cost, even when it became clear the film wouldn't achieve Star Wars-level success. Production delays and technical challenges meant that money was being spent on filming while expensive sets and crews sat idle, waiting for effects work to be completed. The budget crisis forced Disney to reconsider how it approached big-budget productions, recognizing that the studio didn't have the infrastructure or expertise to compete with established sci-fi filmmakers. 13. The black hole itself was created, using innovative techniques. The visualization of the black hole required creating visual effects for a phenomenon that had never been seen and could only be imagined based on theoretical physics. Effects artists consulted with astronomers and physicists to develop scientifically plausible depictions of how a black hole might appear to approaching spacecraft. The swirling vortex effect was created using multiple layers of artwork, rotoscoping, and optical printing that combined to suggest massive gravitational forces warping space and light. The technical challenge was making the black hole feel genuinely threatening and cosmic while remaining visually comprehensible to audiences unfamiliar with advanced physics concepts. Different shots of the black hole used varying techniques depending on distance and dramatic requirements, creating an evolving threat rather than static background element. 14. It bombed. Despite Disney's massive marketing campaign, despite unprecedented marketing expenditure and intense media coverage, the black hole failed to capture public imagination or generate the box office returns Disney desperately needed. The film opened against Star Trek, the motion picture, creating a crowded science fiction marketplace where both films competed for the same audience demographic. Critics were divided about whether the film was sophisticated psychological drama or confusing mess that couldn't decide what it wanted to be. Family audiences were disturbed by the dark themes and violence, while science fiction fans found it derivative and dramatically unsatisfying compared to Star Wars or Alien. The commercial failure devastated Disney's confidence in producing big-budget science fiction, leading to decades of reluctance to attempt similar projects. 15. It gained cult following through home video. Decades after its theatrical failure, The Black Hole found appreciation among viewers who discovered it through VHS and later DVD releases that allowed repeated viewing and analysis. Cult audiences began recognizing the film's ambition and thematic complexity that had been overlooked during its original release when compared unfavorably to Star Wars. The dark ending and religious imagery that alienated mainstream audiences became selling points for viewers interested in science fiction that explored existential and spiritual themes. Film scholars started analyzing The Black Hole as interesting failure that revealed Disney's identity crisis during the late 1970s transition from traditional family entertainment to modern blockbuster producer. The cult appreciation demonstrated that some films require distance from their original context to be properly evaluated on their own merits rather than as commercial disappointments. The Black Hole remains Disney's most fascinating failure, an ambitious attempt to compete in the science fiction marketplace that revealed the studio's limitations while pushing boundaries of what Disney films could depict. Drop a comment below. What legendary film should we dive into next? Because in a universe full of black holes, some stories refuse to disappear into darkness.